so many. When we were kids, I think our biggest influence was Status Quo and Slade and Sweet and all those bands that were on Top of the Pops in 1971, 72, 73, 74. And the first band we ever got to see in concert was Slade, and the opener was the sensational Alex Harvey Band. And he was unbelievable. And even at that age, you could see there was an audience who had no interest in this band whatsoever. They wanted to see Slade. And Alex came out and strangled the life out of everyone in that audience until they loved him at the end. And it was just the greatest showmanship I'd ever seen. And then Slade, who of course were masters of showmanship too. So after seeing that, it was kind of like the blueprint of, this is how you have to do it. Yeah, this is what it's all about. You're entertaining people, you're bringing them in, making them part of what's going on. And that was our education. We'd see bands like that. And then I'd go and see Bad Company in 1977 and walked out halfway through because they didn't give a toss. And I loved that band, but they were awful. Because it was as if, where's my paycheck? I can't be bothered. Dreadful.
Yeah, I have to say, for me, influences and everything was Slade, because we were very young, and then at that time music was kind of like, I don't know how to put it, it was almost like folk bands souped up to me. That's what it wasn't really as defined. And when Slade came along, even though it was like kind of visually, it was kind of glam rock and everything, we really were introduced to Slade through Slade Alive, the live album, which was much more of a heavier kind of like raucous rock and roll kind of, you know, like bare knuckles kind of. It didn't have what we didn't see. Of course, just listening to it, you imagine being at this live concert. We didn't see this tinsel nonsense that like Top of the Pops in England used to push. And but there was other great bands. For instance, the Sweet, who their studio albums are all basically like heavy rock, and then they would have these glam hits, these like, and then we didn't know at the time because we were just kids, but them were songs were written by Chin and Chapman, who actually tried to write songs for Slade, and Slade wouldn't do it. They wanted to do their own musical direction. So, but a lot of these bands, there was Susie Quattro, who else? Mud. There was several bands who had huge hits in England at that time, the glam rock period.
They were written by the same people.
Same people wrote them songs. I'm not sure everybody knows that, but then I don't know if that was what made it so popular, because it was like kind of these poppy songs, but with this kind of like crazy, extravagant, like Gary Glitter, for instance. When we first saw Gary Glitter, he was on Top of the Pops with a giant chopper motorcycle and everything. As a kid who was like going to this like comprehensive school where you had to wear like the school uniform, and you had to conform to all this stuff, and then you see this guy like, and it's just like insane. You'd be like, what the heck is going on?
So yeah, it was like going from black and white to colour.
Yeah.
It really was. But we followed from then, other, usually older friends or whatever would be like, you haven't heard Deep Purple yet, have you? You haven't heard Black Sabbath. What about this Led Zeppelin album? And we'd just suck it all in. And we'd go to see as many bands as possible. And that was our education.
I remember there's a guy called Spock, we used to call him, because he had big ears. So he looked like off of, what he called Star Trek. And he loaned us Volume 4, Sabbath album. That was the very earliest that we were really into Sabbath and all that stuff. And so that would be like 77 maybe, or 70?
No, it'd be earlier than that. It'd be like 74, 75. And you'd sit around a little tin box record player.
Yeah. And that was probably the heaviest thing. So we kind of transitioned from that stuff into these bands, Deep Purple, Sabbath, and then of course Judas Priest, and
Budgie, and Rory Gallagher, and everybody. So we sucked all of it in.
Yeah.
And we spat out all the faster stuff and stuff with interesting parts.
And then if you listen to the early Raven stuff, it's almost like you took that metal and then some of that kind of crazy, fun element of some of the glam rock stuff, and then you add a little bit of punk influence, because at that time punk was big in the late 70s. And then you put it all together, that in a blender, that's kind of what it ended up being. It was just a natural thing. It wasn't really something we set out to do, but that was just, we're like wearing the influences on our sleeve, as it were.